Change often gets framed as a mindset test. Are you adaptable, resilient, and open-minded? And sure, our individual differences do matter. We have personality characteristics, lived experience, and background that influences how we respond to adversity. But if we stick with the logic we've built so far, change should feel disorienting, even for competent and well-intentioned people, because change disrupts the cues that we rely on to coordinate and make sense of the world around us. So it often feels chaotic, even when it's good change, and especially when it's not so good change. That feeling of disorientation doesn't mean that we're failing or falling apart, it's just a signal. I'm Professor Bailey, I have a Ph.D. in organizational communication, and this is Everyday Organizational Behavior. Today, we're asking the question, why does organizational change feel so disorienting? Well, first, change feels disorienting because it disrupts predictability, shared expectations, and our informal routines. A classic reference point here is Kurt Lewin in 1951. His work is often summarized as unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. We're not using Lewin as a modern how-to guide. It's a baseline reminder that change requires us to get destabilized before we feel stabilized again. And when stability disappears, we do lose a lot of our procedures and our day-to-day happenings, but we also lose our coordination cues like role clarity, decision routines, informal norms, reliable timelines, unspoken agreements, and who does what and when. So even good change can feel disorienting because it forces people to rebuild our shared expectations while we're continuing to perform our work. This disorientation is often sense-making in real time and not necessarily us resisting. Carl Weick is an anchor here, particularly his work in 1995. When meaning structures collapse, people scramble to rebuild reality fast enough so that they can continue functioning. And this is what organizations often label as resistance, even though it's actually what Weick would refer to as sense-making. Sense-making involves asking questions, voicing concerns, testing boundaries, trying to figure out what's actually changing versus what is staying the same and what's actually just words in the wind. People aren't always refusing. Often they're just trying to locate themselves inside this new system. And leaders and employees often experience change as sense-giving and sense-making cycles. In 1991, researchers studied strategic change initiation using an ethnographic design in a large public university, and they developed the sense-making and sense-giving framework. Leaders try to shape meaning, and that's sense-giving, and employees try to interpret and reconstruct meaning. That's sense-making. Change is operational, but it's also interpretive. Operationally, we may be doing things differently, but interpretively, we're figuring out how this new system works. We're making sense of all the new messages that we're receiving and figuring out what our role and responsibility in this new design is. So when we neglect that interpretive side of change, when people don't have enough information to build a coherent story about who they are in this new system, that disorientation that we feel intensifies. So let's go back to the idea of coordination because it ties everything together. Change disrupts coordination by weakening our accountability, weakening our predictability, and hampering that common understanding that we've built. Here, let's talk about a major integrative review in 2009. The researchers argued that coordination mechanisms create three integrative conditions: accountability, predictability, and common understanding. So think about what that change does. Our accountability gets blurred, our roles shift, our decision rights move around, our reporting lines might change, and our predictability drops. We don't know our routines, our timelines change, and the systems shift around. Our common understanding fractures. Our priorities change, our languages change, our success criteria change. So this disorientation is a really rational response to our coordination cues disappearing all around us. Our biggest takeaway here is that change at an organizational level is disorienting to us on an individual level because it disrupts our coordination cues. It triggers us to rapidly sense-make, which is challenging, and it unfolds through this sense-giving and sense-making process. We also have destabilized accountability, predictability, and common understanding. So next time you're in an organization that's experiencing change and it feels overwhelming, frustrating, anxiety-inducing, remember that it's not you. It's that this change is disrupting coordination as the organization knows it.